Hello, my name is Gerry Kersey, and I would like to welcome you to this nostalgic look at bygone Yorkshire coast. Northwards lies Whitby, a serious town of sturdy character, an important port in the 18th century. Scarborough is the largest of North Yorkshire's seaside towns. The name Scarp's Stronghold recalls Viking raids on this coastline. That warlike image persists on Castle Hill, with ruins of a Norman castle, where once stood a Roman signal station, and earlier, an Iron Age fort. Bridlington has a sober town centre which lurches into hectic seafront activity. It has a very appealing old town. A world away from the seaside flurry, Church Green fronts the Priory Church of St Mary the Virgin, large as a cathedral. The changing nature of the area can be seen in much of the film in this programme. This video is not intended to be a complete history of the area, nor indeed is it presented in chronological order, but instead gives glimpses of the area as seen by both professional and local cinefilm makers of bygone years. I hope you will enjoy coming with me on this nostalgic look back at the Yorkshire coast. The fishermen of Whitby are no strangers to the leviathans from the deep. From first to last, 53 of their vessels were employed in the whaling trade, and the number of whales brought to Whitby in the 50 years from 1766 to 1816 inclusive amounted to 2,761, besides about 25,000 seals, 55 bears, 43 unicorns, and 64 seahorses. The unicorns were doubtless narwhals. The two Scoresbys, father and son, must be ranked among the most remarkable men that Whitby has produced. The elder Scoresby invented the crow's nest, which was later adopted by every fishing fleet in the world. He was, in his time, the most successful and daring of all captains engaged in the Greenland whale fishery, capturing in the course of 30 years no less than 553 whales, yielding 4,664 tons of oil and 240 tons weight of whalebone, along with many thousands of seals, some hundreds of walruses, very many narwhals, and numerous bears. He even succeeded in taming a polar bear, which he brought home with him, and which escaped into Cocknell Woods to the great alarm of the inhabitants of Whitby. But, taking with him a stout rope, he walked up to the huge animal, and putting the rope over its head, he led it quietly back to his ship. It was usually kept chained up near a cask of water at the corner of Spittal Bridge. We obviously do not have film from that era, but what we do have is this film, taken by local cine enthusiast Mr. H.J. Davies, of the fishing boats W12 returning with a shark and the W16 with a tunny caught on longline. We're indebted to Mr. Jeff Morris, who wrote and produced The Story of the Whitby Lifeboats, for his tale of this unique piece of film, once again taken by Mr. Davies. The Jacob and Rachel Valentine, a 34-foot self-righter, took part in a most unusual rescue in September 1931, 1.5 miles inland. For days there had been torrential rain in the area, and floodwater poured down Eskdale from the hills. By the afternoon of the 4th of September, over 8 feet of water blocked many roads, and the inhabitants of 2 cottages at Russell were placed in considerable danger. At 5:40 p.m, the No. 2 lifeboat was taken out of her boathouse and hauled by 70 people along the road to Russell, being launched into the floodwater at 6:35 p.m. After struggling through the raging torrent for over half a mile, the lifeboat men reached the cottages and rescued 5 people, including a 90-year-old bedridden lady, the lifeboat landing them in the front garden of a house. Letters of appreciation were sent by the RNLI to Captain Milburn, the chairman of the Whitby Branch Committee, and to Mr. John Foster, the station honorary secretary, all of whom had taken an active part in this service. The event was later reported in the Whitby Gazette of Friday the 11th of September, 1931. Although this coastline can have holiday weather as good as any on the coast of Great Britain, it can also be prone to the worst of North Sea storms. In this first clip, we experience a stormy day at Whitby. Although this film was taken in the 1930s, the spots we see are not caused by film deterioration, but by the rain being driven into the camera lens. We see here the problems caused when the wind blows directly into the harbour mouth, causing the fishing boats, one by one, to cast off and move into the inner harbour for protection. Next, we move to a very stormy day at Sand's End. Keep an eye open for the local bus making its way along the promenade. We know that it didn't have seat belts, but you can only hope that on a day like this, it was carrying life belts. Whitby has a unique ceremony that goes back to a legend of the 12th century. The legend relates how on the 16th of October 1159, 2 lords, William de Bruce and Ralph de Percy, together with a gentleman named Alletson, met to hunt wild boar on land belonging to the abbot of Whitby. They were in full pursuit of a great boar when it sought refuge, exhausted, in the hermitage of a monk from the abbey. It soon died. The monk continued his meditations, his door barred against the baying hounds. The hunters were soon at the door themselves and bade the monk open up. When he did, they saw the dead animal, and in fury at being deprived of their sport, they ran the hermit through with their boar staves. On the point of death, he forgave them their sin, saying they should retain their tenancy of the abbot's land and of his successors by the performance of the detailed penance he laid out for them. Starting at sunrise of the eve of Ascension Day, they were to cut a prescribed number of stakes, stout stowers and yedders from stray-head wood with a knife of a penny price and carry them on their backs to the town of Whitby. Precise instructions as to the building of a hedge at the brim of the water were given. Built at 9 a.m., unless if it be full sea the service shall cease, it had to withstand 3 tides. And that you may better call to God for repentance and find mercy and do good works, the officer of Eskdaleside shall blow his horn and cry, out on you for the heinous crime of you. Failure to carry out the penance would result in the forfeiture of their lands. The ceremony has been associated with the Hutton family for many years. In the opening shots we saw Mr. Hutton performing the ceremony, and if you look carefully, the old curved horn can also be seen. Another custom which still takes place is the custom of the Goathland plough stots, which originated in Goathland a few miles inland from Whitby. This film, unfortunately of not very good quality, records the dance over the years. The custom dates back to the times over 1,000 years ago when Norse raiders settled in Yorkshire. In fact, Goathland is a derivative from Godaland, meaning settlement of Norsemen. The plough stots are a team of sword dancers who dance up and down the long village streets hauling a plough and begging alms. In older days, they were said to shake the mud off their clogs and make merry, and only when they were refused money did they plough a furrow through the offender's front lawn. Today, the plough is used as a symbol of persuasion. Stot means bullock and refers to the young men, some dressed as women, who danced through the village streets, colourfully dressed in their pink and blue costumes depicting Isaac, Betty, Toadman and Toadwoman. They could be seen on Plough Monday, traditionally the first Monday after the 6th of January, which was the old Christmas day. The Gentleman's Magazine for 1811 finished its description of the dance with these words: "These frolics they continue till New Year's Day, when they spend their gains at the alehouse with the greatest innocence and mirth, having invited all their rustic acquaintance." These charming sequences of film show the people of Whitby throwing a street party for their children in celebration of VE Day. Once again, the film is unique, and as before, filmed by Mr. Davis, the headmaster of the local school. They were rejoicing that the grimness of nearly 6 years was giving place to conditions which, if not likely to be normal for some time to come, were a relief from the darkness and peril which had been the lot of many, and from which none of them had entirely escaped. Whitby has its own unique record of the war, which was recorded in the Whitby Gazette of the 9th of February 1940. A Heinkel bomber was shot down at the Baniel Flat, 2 miles out of Whitby, near the Whitby-Gisborough Road, on Saturday morning after a fierce battle with 3 British fighters. Shipping had been attacked off the northeast and east coast of England, and later in the day the Air Ministry announced that the Royal Air Force machines had shot down 2 German bombers and very seriously damaged a third, which was believed to have crashed down into the sea. Hundreds of Whitby people were eyewitnesses of the engagement of the enemy bomber and the British fighter machines. It was the first enemy plane to crash on English soil in this war, the RAF's previous similar success having been in Scotland. The pilot of the successful RAF plane, a certain Flight Lieutenant Peter Townsend, was later to become world-renowned as the escort of the young Princess Margaret. It was said in 1537 that Bridlington stands in a far corner of the shire, adjoining to the sea, where no resort is of strangers, except such as dwell about the same that come to the market there. For over 2 centuries more, Bridlington, or Burlington as it was often called, remained a quiet market town with a small harbour. Since the mid-18th century, however, the adjacent sea and the resort of strangers have combined to transform it into a fashionable watering hole, and as transport and therefore accessibility improved, into a popular resort for seaside holidays. During prehistoric times, the countryside near Bridlington was extensively settled, and prehistoric routes across the wolds may later have been followed by Roman roads. It is possible, moreover, that a harbour at the mouth of the Gypsy race was used during the Roman occupation. The resort developed more rapidly when the railway from Hull was opened in 1846. The railway continued to be the main mode of arrival up to the 1950s. The method of launching and recovering the Bridlington lifeboat by means of a tractor with a deep wading capability, as seen here, is still in use in places along the Yorkshire coast. Even a slight surf can cause problems. Now, imagine the lifeboat being launched in the middle of the night in a storm with a heavy surf running, and you begin to realize the courage, skill and dedication shown by the lifeboat crews and the huge vote of thanks that is owed to them by so many for their dedication to duty. There has been an institution lifeboat here since the foundation in 1824, and the station is very much part of the community, standing high in its affections and respect. Each year, a memorial service is held in memory of the great gale at Bridlington on February the 10th, 1871, when 70 lives were lost and 30 ships were wrecked. Bridlington had 2 lifeboats at that time, the Robert Whitworth, an RNLI self-righting boat, and a smaller boat, the Harbinger, given to the local fishermen by the Count Gustav Bathany in 1863. The latter was built by a Bridlington man, David Purden, and was hung on davits at the harbour side. The Harbinger capsized in her many attempts to save her fellow seamen, and although 6 of the lifeboat crew were lost, the remainder managed to right the boat and were able to save themselves. Bridlington lifeboats have a proud record of service. Although early records are incomplete, recorded launches by both motor lifeboats and, since 1966, the inshore lifeboats show that up to December 1984, they had made 881 launches with the saving of 460 lives. The people of Bridlington have always shown themselves capable of putting on a good show and thoroughly enjoying themselves and providing a spot of merriment and laughter for the townsfolk and visitor alike, as this 1950s procession shows. What seems like an everyday seaside scene develops into an altogether unusual activity on Bridlington's promenade as the locals stage a car rally, much to the delight of visiting holidaymakers. The cars themselves are slightly more flamboyant to ones which would normally travel along Bridlington's beach promenade. To the car enthusiast, there is an opportunity to see early models of the Jaguar, Triumph Roadster and an Aston Martin. Let us now relax and spend a day out with an old Bridlington fishing boat as seen through the cine camera of Mr. Freeman, a local school teacher, as he joined the crew on a lovely day in 1946. Bridlington still retains its character as a fishing port. The harbour is crammed with vessels of all shapes and sizes, and anglers from all over northern England gather on the quay in September for the fishing festival. The large 40-foot cobbles take parties out for a day's fishing, and there are pleasure boats for the less hardy. 27 keelboats and 20 cobbles still fish from the harbour. This is a massive decline when you consider that in 1987, Bridlington was the 7th largest fishing port in England and Wales. Although longline fishing still takes place, the 3 main methods are trawling for cod, haddock, whiting and plaice, drift net fishing for herring and cod, and potting for crabs and lobsters as seen in this film. Pleasure boats have also played an important part in Bridlington's life. The Yorkshire Belle and the Flamboyant carry on a long tradition of passenger steamers sailing from Bridlington Harbour. The first Yorkshire Belle came here in 1938, but was lost in the Humber with all hands when she struck a magnetic mine. A new Yorkshire bell was built in 1947 to replace the new Royal Sovereign, and at about this time the Bridlington Queen commenced operations here. In many ways, the years during which the wayside flower was fishing, as shown here, was an idyllic period for the industry. Fishermen could sail for 2 hours and catch enough fish for a living. Nowadays, skippers have to search far afield for their catch, with no guarantee of success at the end of their journey. The Queen was selected at a ball held in the Spa Ballroom. The ball was held in conjunction with the Scarborough Townsmen's Association, and the selection was by popular vote. Miss Ida Edwards was the Queen of the Roses for 1932, and she resided in Raleigh Street. With her tall, regal appearance, she appeared every inch a queen, as the Scarborough Evening News reported on the 7th of April 1932. Traditionally, there were 12 queens' attendants. A pageant of famous women from ancient times to our own Victorians was organised as a striking new feature, and the 38 characters portrayed added to the pageantry of the coronation, as well as taking part in a parade of the promenade. About midway in the pageant came a group of characters of outstanding interest, that formed by the 6 wives of Henry VIII and their oft-married lord and master himself. The coronation of Scarborough's Queen of the Roses took place on Wednesday the 22nd of June 1932. In addition to the pageant of famous women of history was the usual procession of decorated cars. Another popular feature was provided by the Skelton team of sword dancers. The band of the 2nd Battalion East Yorkshire Regiment occupied the bandstand. Quite an hour before the programme began, the green banks of the spa grounds were crowded by those who had arrived early to secure the best vantage points from which to view the ceremony. The Queen and her attendants proceeded to the dais, where, after a fanfare by the heralds, the Queen was presented to Lady Whittaker. Lady Whittaker, amidst applause, placed the crown on her head. The Queen then passed to the other side of the throne and bowed to the crowds on the forecourt and promenade below amongst enthusiastic cheering. Oliver's Mount First International Motorcycle Races were held on the Oliver's Mount circuit in September 1951. Road racing has been popular on the coast since 1935, when a small band of pioneers, headed by Mr. J. Claxton, commenced to use the Mount for small meetings. In addition, they had a very ambitious plan for a 10-mile circuit around the town via East Ayton, which would have produced conditions on a par with the Isle of Man. Unfortunately, due to the war and the misgivings of some local folk who did not want to see natural amenities spoilt, this project never developed beyond the plan. The first national event began in 1946. The course could not qualify for international recognition until the width of the road was broadened to 5 meters. And when done, this enables crack continental riders to compete with Jeff Duke, Johnny Lockett, W. Lomas, and other well-known members of the 3 British works teams, Norton, AJS and Velocet. Lone riders included Scarborough's own Peter Fawcett, a young apprentice mechanic who, riding on an old Norton machine, which had already had 2 previous owners, came third in one of the 350cc heats at the July races. The races were immensely popular. In 1950, for instance, over 47,000 attended the 2 meetings. The Scarborough Cricket Festival has always been, and still is, a very popular feature of the late summer sports scene. We do not know what year this film was taken, but we do know that it was pre-war, as the houses seen in the background here were bombed during the war and now no longer exist. Here you see a relatively young Don Bradman about to bat. the Scarborough Evening News of Monday the 14th of February 1938 carried the dramatic story of His Majesty's destroyer Walrus, a 1,100-ton vessel of the War Emergency Programme. The destroyer, which carried a crew of 140 during the First World War, broke adrift as it was being towed from Rosyth to Portsmouth for repair, manned only by an emergency crew of 4. The Walrus broke adrift on Saturday the 12th of February 1938 at about 2:15 p.m. from the Admiralty tug St. Mella, when in sight of Whitby Coast Guard Station. During what was the most severe northwesterly gale in living memory, it ran aground on the Mascus Rocks in the North Bay at 10:15 the same night. From the moment when it was known that the destroyer was adrift at the mercy of the storm, all the energies of the Coast Guard and lifeboat services between Scarborough and the Tees were devoted towards effecting the rescuing of the men. However, the crew reached the shore on a rubber raft, just as the rocket brigade summoned from Burniston fired its first rocket, and before the lifeboat could be launched.
Teesdale Park goes in for brass bands on Sundays and boating every day except Monday and Thursday afternoons, when naval warfare takes place at 10 pence a time. The convoy is steaming through enemy and duck-infested waters. Leading is the cruiser Ajax, followed by the troop ship Astorius, two amphibious ducks, the cruiser Achilles, the ice cream carrier Cornet, an armed merchantman the Jarvis Bay, and the Ark-Royal, whose aircraft have spotted and are attacking an enemy battleship, Fred. A straggler from the convoy, the Nil Esperandum, limps blissfully along, unaware of an enemy sub around the corner. The sub has duck trouble. Having got rid of the ducks, the Oberleutnant thinks he should do something about the ambling Nil Esperandum, such as sinking it. He dives. A frantic search unearths 2 torpedoes in the bilges. The Nil Esperandum, meanwhile, grinds to a halt with clutch trouble. The torpedoes don't improve matters. The sub surfaces to give the gunners a turn. Back on the Nil Esperandum, things have improved, apart from the missing port side, that is. The captain has got 3rd gear, and she's underway and under fire from the sub's 88mm. Now the Oberleutnant is in trouble from the Jarvis Bay, who about turned on receiving the SOS from the Nil Esperandum. However, they all live to fight another day.
We're indebted to Mr. H. Walker for this record of the activities of the Scarborough Open Air Theatre over the years. On the 27th of November 1931, the Mayor told a meeting of the Scarborough Townsmen's Association that Scarborough Amateur Operatic Society, with 200 performers, had offered to put on a production in the Pleasure Park the following summer, using the natural resources as the scenery. In the summer of 1932, Sir Maurice Jenks, then Lord Mayor of London, made a special trip to the town to perform the opening ceremony. And beneath the stars, the amateurs danced and sang their way through merry England on a grass-covered island set in the middle of a lake. Sir Maurice said, "The setting is ideal and constitutes a wonderful tribute to the imagination of whoever realized the possibilities to be derived from this particular part of the park." Merry England fired the imagination of thousands that first summer, and the Society celebrated its success at the end of the season with a banquet. The curtain to no less than 31 subsequent productions in the open air had been right royally raised. With a 182-foot long stage, lake, and 80-foot tall trees behind, the natural possibilities of the theatre were enormous. The 1939 production of Bohemian Girl was cut short once war had been declared. Come the war years and the blackout, the theatre lights went out. Finally, in 1945, with the tried and trusted Merry England, it opened again. It continued to spellbound summer crowds until its final production, West Side Story, in 1968. The amateur players backed the few professional principals employed for the main roles. With 2 shows a week during the season, they had to be prepared to give up 4 nights in case of a rain-off. On only 4 occasions was the society required to pay audiences their money back. During the years, the society has used horses, dogs, swimmers, boats, archers, fireworks, bridges, and a glass raft in its wide range of productions. It broke with tradition and tentatively went into musical comedy in 1963 with Annie Get Your Gun, and this lighter type of musical became its forte. As one might well imagine, there were many problems to surmount in this huge theatre, where a curtain never came down and the roof was the star-scattered sky. For the players, the nights could sometimes be uncomfortably cold. Sitting out there in front, a big audience generated its own heat, snuggled under car rugs and blankets, sipped coffee laced with a drop of the hard stuff. That's the fun in being an open-air theatre audience. But on stage, sometimes flimsily dressed performers had to take their chances with the elements. In one production, the script required a leading dancer to lie down on the hard concrete stage for 10 minutes each night. She managed to avoid influenza by reclining on a hot water bottle. In Hiawatha, the cast kept warm because they were genuinely in Indian character, wearing blankets, some of which concealed a pale-faced hot water bottle or 2. Ladies of the chorus in another production had to kneel for lengthy periods on the rock-hard stage. They avoided grazed kneecaps by fitting rubber falsies. The body makeup of another principal took an hour to apply and an hour to hose off each night. An archer taking part in a shooting scene was amazed when his flying arrow hit the target, carrying with it his false beard. The audience loved it, and they collapsed in a 7,000-seat roar of laughter when a principal male singer ventured a little too close to the lake edge and fell headfirst into the water. The society provided very high-class entertainment for hundreds of thousands of people over the years, and it is true to say that theatregoers were all the poorer when the curtain finally closed on the final night of West Side Story in 1968. No visit to the Yorkshire coast could be complete without a visit to Butlins at Filey, responsible for introducing so many families to the magnificent seascapes, wild sea winds, cliffs, headlands, bays and towns of this holiday coastline, most of which is officially designated as Heritage Coast for its outstanding natural beauty, wildlife and historic interest. It is fitting, therefore, that our final film takes us to the past fun of Billy Butlin's Filey Holiday Camp. I do hope you've enjoyed this glimpse of a bygone Yorkshire coast. We hope to make another similar programme, giving those interested in the bygone days of the area a chance to see more of this fascinating film. So please, scour your attics and cupboards for more precious cine reels. If you find some, we'll be delighted to hear from you on the telephone number printed on the inside of the video case. With your help, perhaps we can enjoy together some more scenes of the Yorkshire coast from a bygone era. Goodbye.